This is a conversation about what you do when the odds are stacked against you and why choosing to fight back is always an option.
I've got a 1% chance, then I want to find a doctor who's willing to take that chance with me. And I decided to be the victor of my life and not the victim. And we all have that choice. It's one decision. But I thought if my why was bigger than my fear, if I can help one person to not give up, it's going to turn the pain that I went through into purpose.
This is the story of Amberly Lago. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. I'm Derek, your host, and I have a really awesome guest with us today. Before I introduce her, I want to reiterate we're not doctors, so before you go changing any programming or nutrition or anything, please check with your physician. Today with me, I have Amberly Lago, who is a globally recognized resilience expert, keynote speaker, best-selling author, and top 1% podcast host, whose work centers on grit, mindset, leadership, and turning pain into purpose. Amberly, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
There's a lot we can touch on here, and trying to find the beginning, honestly, was a little tough for me. And I thought I'd throw it to you. How did you get started in this whole realm that seems to cover so many different aspects?
Well, I talk a lot. I speak a lot at different organizations and companies about grit and resilience. And I honestly feel like that is something that I have been learning my entire life from, I think, every challenge, every hard thing that I've gone through as a child, from being sexually abused, starting at 8 years old by my stepfather, parents going through a divorce, addiction. I, thought I'm getting out of here. I am making something of myself. I'm getting away from people who are, addicted to things, and I want to make something of my life. And that's, I say I worked 4 jobs by the time I was in high school, and I know
Wow.
you teach school, so I was still a bit of an overachiever. I think I became an overachiever as a way to find joy or kind of cover up the shame or make me feel worthy of even being loved or accepted. And so I became an honor student. I graduated Miss Greenville High School, straight A's, all the things while I was working 4 jobs. And I moved to LA to become a professional dancer without people. Most people were like, oh, you're crazy. Who do you think you are? And then a month later, I was dancing with MC Hammer in a music
Wow.
video. And
That's insane.
I was like, I made it. Oh my gosh, I'm dancing with MC Hammer. I was on top of the world. And I thought, wow, I'm getting paid to do what I love. Now, it was not easy being in the dance industry, and it taught me so much resilience and getting back up, about being an entrepreneur. And because you're told no so many times, I mean, auditions, I just looked at every time I got a no at an audition as, okay, well, then I'm one step closer to a yes. That's one more rep in, one step closer for me to get a yes. And I've always, my whole life, thought, well, ask the question, like, what brings me joy? And that's what I want to do. And so getting to dance and travel all over the world as a professional dancer brought me so much joy. And then after I had my first child, another way I learned some grit and resilience is I was a single mom, and then got into the fitness industry because I didn't want to. She went on every audition. In fact, she actually booked a job. They called me and said, and I thought, oh, I got the job. They're like, well, no, we actually don't want you. We want your daughter. And
Oh,
so she
wow.
actually booked the job. But I wanted something that was a little bit more stable, and so I went and I thought, well, I love working with people. I'd been teaching dance since I was 13, and I thought, I have rehabbed myself from a knee injury and a back injury in the gym. Maybe I could do the same for others. And so I got into the fitness training And that too, being an athlete, younger and then in the fitness world, it teaches you mental toughness and resilience. And so I feel like all these lessons along the way, and then building my career from scratch, finally having enough money to buy a home for my daughter and I, that taught me a lot about mental toughness and resilience and grit. But it wasn't until life was really, really good and I had finally met the man of my dreams. We had a baby, so now I've got two healthy children. My career was booming and everything changed in the blink of an eye. I was coming home from work and I was on my Harley when I had this SUV that shot out of a parking lot and I got T-boned, thrown 30 feet. And I just remember sliding across the asphalt and, just hoping that another car didn't run into me. I couldn't tell what I was sliding into. And I came to a stop and my leg was just crumbled into pieces. And it's crazy what goes through your mind because one of the first thoughts I had was, "Oh, this can't be good. I might have to train clients on crutches for a while." I was already thinking like, "Okay, how am I gonna keep working? How am I gonna keep the roof over my head?" I wasn't thinking about, like, anything else except for the cuss words that were coming out of my mouth and my
We won't share those here, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, I thought my Methodist mama would not be proud of me. I even thought that.
Oh, no.
Um it was just crazy. I remember everything so vividly, and luckily, there was a man that came over right away, and he made a tourniquet around my leg. He saved my life because I didn't know at the time, but the reason there was so much blood everywhere is because my femoral artery was actually
Oh,
severed, and, I got rushed to the hospital, and when I get to the hospital, it was chaotic, and my husband got to the hospital. The room was filled with cops because news travel. He was a lieutenant commander with a CHP, and it travels fast in the brotherhood and sisterhood of the police
yeah.
force. And the room was filled with cops, and it was chaotic and just crazy. And I'm taped to a gurney and can't really see anything, but I can hear this crying and I realized it was my husband and then I saw his face and he was just I'd never seen him cry. He's this big tough guy, first responder,
Yeah.
and in that moment I thought, "Oh my goodness, I might not make it. I might be dying." And I yelled across the room. I said, "Honey, I need you to get over here and be strong for me."
Mm.
Because in that moment, I needed to know that he was gonna be okay to take care of our girls, and that's the last thing I remember before they put me in induced coma because I'd lost so much blood, my vital organs were failing, they couldn't control my pain, and, I woke up a week and a half later, and that's when I learned that I had a 1% chance of saving my leg from amputation. And that was when the journey began, and I thought, "Well, I've got a 1% chance, then I wanna find a doctor who's willing to take that chance with me," and it took an act of God. It took 34 surgeries, months in the hospital, and just thousands of hours of excruciating physical pain, physical therapy, and to this day, I still actually have pain, but they were able to save my leg, and despite doctors after that diagnosing me with an incurable nerve disease as a result of the accident and telling me I'd be wheelchair bound forever, I can walk. And
Wow.
I think it's because of every hard thing that I went through, the mental toughness I grew up with as a dancer and an athlete, being an entrepreneur, being a single mom, all these things that people might look at as hard times. And yeah, they were hard. Some of it was very hard. But those things I feel like developed the resilience to get through surgery after surgery and still get through hard days with pain and being an entrepreneur at the same
Yeah,
time.
you still gotta work too. Wow. So what there's a lot to unpack there, Amberly. That's an
That was a long
amazing.
answer.
Yes, no, but it was I appreciate the depth that you went into there. Just taking the accident at the end? Because it seems like you had the challenges growing up and everything was kind of going well, and then this happened. What did you learn from this whole experience?
Um, well, I had to unlearn a lot of things. I didn't realize that pretty much my whole life I had been running from shame, from pain. And I mean, literally running. I became, uh, in track, they wanted me to go to the Olympics. I set a record for running the fastest mile in Texas. I'm
Wow.
sure that record has long since been broken, but I ran, and running made me feel good because I knew if I just trained harder and worked harder, I could get first place and make my coach proud. And also on the track is when I felt most connected to God. I went to church every Sunday growing up in the Bible Belt of Texas, but I always have still to this day feel more connected with God and nature. And so I ran even and I didn't deal with a lot of the pain from the sexual abuse, from my brother who, he's apologized since, but used to beat the crap out of me. I didn't realize that's just not normal. That's not what brothers
Mm,
don't hit their sister in the face with their fist. Like a lot of things, but I used those things and I don't think I really processed them. I think I stuffed them down. Like I ran from the shame um, to get strong and swear that I would never be beaten up again. I did Krav Maga and Muay Thai
wow.
kickboxing, and I lifted heavy with the, male bodybuilders. And I was like, built up my confidence that way. But when I was stuck in a hospital bed and I had no tools, I couldn't box, I couldn't run. All I could do was lay in that hospital bed and all those feelings were rising to the surface and I couldn't do anything with it. And on top of the emotional pain, I was in so much excruciating pain and trying every kind of treatment to treat this complex regional pain syndrome. And it wasn't working. And so what worked for me in the past was all about the grit. Just work harder, do more, push more. And I mean, how many of us think that? Like, if we just do more, post more on social media, make more call, whatever it is, then we're going to be successful. But I learned the true definition of resilience is not just about grit and gritting it out. It's connection. Um, Grit without connection just feels like clawing your way to the top. It's struggling, it's sometimes hitting rock bottom, but grit with connection is where you find true resilience. And I mean, connection to your heart, your soul, your intuition, to your higher power, and to others, and to your God given vision and values. That connection is what is going to allow you to thrive, find joy through the journey, and be resilient. And so that's what I really had to learn. I had to unlearn the fact that I didn't have to do it all by myself. In fact, it was impossible. I can't
Yeah.
do it by myself, and I don't want to. But I learned that, we heal what we reveal, you can't keep stuffing it down. Pain, whether it's physical, emotional, financial, relational, pain demands to be heard, and if you keep stuffing it down, it will come out in everything that you do, the way that you lead, the way that you love, your relationships. It can come out in disease, so many things, and so as hard as it has been to really heal those traumas, I've done so much work from brain mapping to reading the books. But I think probably the most cathartic thing that I've done is writing my books. I had no idea how cathartic that would be, and staying connected with a like minded community.
I imagine that. Yeah, and when you said connection to, like, my mind went to connection to a purpose is what I'm assuming that, is that in a correct way to phrase it? What
I
you're
think it's
thinking?
important to, because I hear a lot of people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is. And that's why I always go back to, well, what brings you joy? What is something that you're good at? Maybe you take it for granted because you're so good at it, but
Yeah.
your purpose could be that you are of service and lift people up. And your purpose could be saying hello to people when you walk through the gym. There's a guy at our gym actually, and his purpose and what he loves doing, he is uh it's kind of embarrassing, but he has a truck and it's Pappy's pooper. It's like your puppy poops it and Pappy scoops it. He
Oh,
loves what he does. He
that's
gets to hang out with dogs. Other people might be like, well, that's not my purpose. But you know what? He loves it, he's proud of it, and so I think that being connected to your why can change so much because there was a time when I was in the hospital bed and I realized I was asking myself all the wrong questions. I was saying, "What am I gonna do? How am I gonna get through this? How am I gonna get back to work? How am I gonna get out of this bed? Is my husband gonna love me? Am I gonna be able to walk again?" And what changed everything was one moment. My daughter, who was only 2 years old at the time, she was upstairs and I had a hospital bed set up downstairs, and all she said was, "Mama." And in that moment, I knew why I was gonna get out of that bed and I was never gonna give up, and I decided to be the victor of my life and not the victim, and we all have that choice. It's one decision, and when you focus on your why, it activates the human spirit, and the human spirit is powerful beyond measure. I have a why that's bigger than me. I had so much fear about writing my books and publishing a book, but I thought, if my why was bigger than my fear, if I can help one person to not give up, it's gonna turn the pain that I went through into purpose. If I can tell my story and one person gets sober because they read something that I wrote in the book, then it's worth it. And so when you make your why bigger than your fear, you can get through the hows.
I love that, and that could not be more accurate too. And just as you're talking about that, obviously it promotes some reflection where you try to think of what you're doing and how you're spending your time, and it's those little things. If you can help somebody, even one person, and make that difference, it definitely puts a smile on your face, and it's purposeful. And what my students, and that's I hope my principal's not listening because we have a curriculum we're supposed to teach, which is great and all, and they do follow the curriculum, and I make sure they learn what they need to. But honestly, like, if they don't learn any of that or remember any of it at the end of the year, and they learn to treat people well, and to be kind and empathetic, and to try to lift somebody else's spirits, and if that's what they take away from the year, then I'm happy with the job that I did. And I had a girl come up to me this morning, and my classroom's the first one in the upstairs hallway, so all the students have to walk past it. "Mr. O, can I be the greeter today?" And she gets
Oh,
by the door, and she smiles at all the kids and waves and wishes them a good morning, and it's the big kids, because I have the oldest kids in the school, and they're just greeting all the younger ones walking by, and it's like, "All right, that's a good thing," and she's smiling the whole time she's doing it. You see the kids talking to her, just you just
that's
see
so
them at peace, so
sweet.
it's important though to find the why and the purpose in the I honestly think it comes down to connections with other people and what you can do to lift someone's spirits, and it makes a huge difference with everything.
And when you can be of service,
Yeah.
and I was that's one of the things that really helped me when I was in between surgery after surgery and really struggling, was I was of service any way that I could be, and I love that you have kids being greeters. And I've had people go, "Well, how could you be of service when you were stuck in the hospital bed?" I was given exercise plans and meal plans to clients, checking on clients, getting them set up with other trainers that I had working for me. I even had the nurses, when they found out I was in the fitness industry, coming up to me saying, "Hey, girl, when you get back, I want you to come back and teach us an exercise class. And what can I do to get a better booty? Like, show me some exercise. What can I do?" And so, I mean, I also had nurses that I had a room where I had my own fridge and I had clients and friends that would bring me organic food. And I was focused on everything I could do to stay healthy mentally, physically, spiritually. And my room had a little chair with a curtain, and the nurses would love to come in my room because I was on the orthopedic floor, which most of the people on that floor were very much older than
Yeah.
me. And they didn't have to change a bedpan. I had a pull-up bar over my bed. I could, I could they didn't have to change a diaper for,
Yeah.
I was easy. And they would come in my room and plop themselves down and just share their troubles and what was going on. And sometimes I listened, and sometimes I would give them the advice based on my experience of what I'd been through. And that made me feel like I was of service. And so, anything you can do, because when you can be of service, to your question before, that gives you purpose. And when you
Mm,
have purpose, you have that will to keep going and keep showing up.
that's very true. Sorry, and it like you're making me think quite a bit here, Amberly. I usually don't wait too long between questions and I keep them going, but there's so much, you were talking about resilience and grit, which you definitely still had to go through that process. And it seems like, sure, not every day was positive, but it sounds like you did the best you could to find the good in every day and help people out and keep pushing forward. Um, how much has that experience shaped what you talk about when you're pulled in to speak and on your podcast and in your books?
Um, well, I think that well, on my podcast, I have it's really shifted. When I first started it back in 2019, it was actually called True Grit and Grace, with Amberly Lago. And then a little over a year ago, I kind of rebranded it to the Amberly Lago Show: Stories of True Grit and Grace. And the reason I did that is because when I first started, I really wanted to have stories of struggles to success, which I still do have
Yeah.
stories of struggles to success. But I noticed how much I get fired up about, like, the entrepreneurial journey and women in business. And I mean, I love the fellas too. And most of the speaking events I do, a lot of times I'm the only female speaker. Um, but I've shifted the podcast more to topics like preventing burnout, how to publish a book, how to sobriety. Um, so there are some stories of, like, overcoming, major struggles. But I think the thing that I'm asked to speak on the most is there are so many companies right now that are dealing with a lot of change, and there's a lot of fear. So, how to navigate your way through the change and the fear with the right mindset. Um, and so I spoke to Google. They were, laying a lot of
Oh,
people off, and in this particular department. And, I was just thrilled that I don't even know how they found me, but thrilled that they asked me to speak to their group. But then, I also have spoken to the last event I just spoke at was all about breakthrough. And then I spoke at an event and they really wanted to know, how do we spark more joy? So those are the things I mostly am asked to speak about the most. But often I'm asked, and a lot of times people think because it looks like it would probably be the hardest thing to go through 34 surgeries
Mm.
to save my leg, but the real struggle began really when I got out of the hospital and I was home, because now I'm actually looking at the bandages off my leg and looking at how my leg is completely deformed and scarred from the hip down. I had to learn to accept who I was and kind of learn who I was. Before, I think I kind of thought who I was what I did and what I could provide. And when that was all stripped away and we had $2.9 million worth of medical expenses and a lien on our house, and I had lost my career when I was the main breadwinner, it was a lot of digging deep and soul searching to figure out who I was, how I could keep moving forward. And, there were some really dark times in there, and I think that the thing that I like to share the most, more than grit and resilience, is the power of connection.
Like, so you said you had to change your identity. How did it change? How would you look at yourself now?
Well, a shallow example of this, I mean, a very shallow example, but I mean, I used to be a fitness model. My nickname at the gym was Legs. I was pretty much like a walking billboard for my business. I
Yeah.
could, go out, and because really, really focused on my health and my fitness, when I walked down the street in workout clothes, people would say, "Oh, are you a trainer?" And I would get a client. I didn't have social media back then. I didn't have business cards back then. Actually, I take that back. I used to train male bodybuilders, male fitness competitors. And
Oh, wow.
one of my guys comes in with a box of business cards. And he actually wrote, Amberly the Devil Brown. I kept some of these cards. And they had a picture of somebody squatting. It said, "Just when you think you're done, you're not." And I was like, it made me laugh. But, um, and that was my maiden name, Brown. But I viewed myself as strong, and I had a very successful career and had worked hard to get it and was very comfortable financially. And um, to have that all stripped away, your identity, your money, your looks, um, there was a lot of, am I going to be able to walk again? Is my husband going to love me with all these scars? And something that changed that for me and really showed me that acceptance is key, to any transformation. Any transformation starts with getting radically honest with yourself and accepting where you are and who you are on your journey. And about a year after my accident, my leg was still giving me so much pain. I was in and out of the hospital constantly, and this nerve disease ranked highest on the pain scale. I could not find the solution. So my bright idea was to walk into the doctor who saved my leg and tell him I had the solution. So I walk in and I said, "Hey, Dr. Wiss, thank you for saving my leg. I appreciate all the surgeries you did, but it's just slowing me down. It's giving me problems. I need you to go ahead and amputate it. It's just too painful." And he
Wow.
said, "Well, we can't do that." And I said, "What do you mean you can't do it?" "No, I want it gone. I need to move on. Just take it." He said, "Well, you have this nerve disease, and if we amputate your leg, it could spread and it could actually get worse." But
Oh,
then what he did changed my life. He sat down in front of me and he put my leg in his lap, and not on the table. And I thought, "Oh, I can't believe he's putting my disgusting, deformed leg on his nice white coat." And he looked at my leg like it was a masterpiece. Like, look at
mm,
what he saved. This is like a medical miracle. And something just shifted in me, and I started crying right there in the office, and I thought, "Wow, it maybe if he can look at my leg that way, maybe I can learn to look at it that way too." And I think sometimes and it wasn't easy, but little by little, I started to be able to accept all the scars and look down at them at, "Wow, look at how the human body can heal and how strong the human spirit is, and all these are all the victories I've won. Look at this, what I've
Yeah.
overcome," and I started getting proud of it, and I really think sometimes we need somebody to believe in us until we can believe in ourselves. We sometimes have to borrow their belief in us, or maybe we need to borrow their confidence, or maybe we need to borrow their faith or their hope until we have it ourselves. Um, and also my husband, he loved me until I could love myself again. I remember
Right.
one night we had gone out for our anniversary and I tried to put, I get my ankles fused and I can only wear a certain kind of boots. In fact, my nickname went from legs in the gym to boots. So people call me boots because I even work out in boots. And
Mm.
I come home and I'd tried wearing these cute little shoes with a strap on them, and my leg was blown up like a sausage, and the strap was digging into my ankle, and I'm just sitting on the closet floor, and I said, "Oh my gosh, look at my leg." And he goes, "Yeah, look at your leg. It's a miracle, isn't it?" And I was like, "Okay, thank you, honey. I love you."
That was the
It
right
is.
thing to say, I needed that, yeah. But that's a great way and a lot of people look at it and it could be more metaphorical scars too, but you see the trauma that's happened, and each one is like is a mark to a victory that you had, like, you got through 34, I'm sure there are a lot of scars, and it's like, "Alright, not one of these single things could beat me. Here I am, I'm still going forward," and it's a lot of people get so caught up, you had said earlier, live your life not as a victim, but, to take everything as something that couldn't beat you. I'm gonna succeed in spite of all that stuff, and I'm gonna use that as fuel, and there's so many people that use everything that's happened as excuses to not continue, to not push forward or not try to build themselves. So, it sounds like you have the right people in your life, from the doctor to your husband, and I'm sure your kids too, that when you need that push, you have somebody there for you.
Oh, yeah, and I
That's
love what
amazing.
you said earlier about empathy and how to treat somebody with kindness and stuff, and, so my youngest daughter, she was only 2 when I had my accident. She had just turned 2, and they gave, awards at school for, best attend or perfect attendance and, the science award for the project, and my daughter got the award for the most empathy.
Oh, that's the
And
best one.
I was like, "Oh, that's amazing." Like,
Yeah.
that I couldn't have been more proud, and I think both my girls, I'm so proud of them. So my oldest daughter, she's at Yale, she's studying to be a doctor. My youngest daughter, bless her heart, she's more like me. She's she's a little entrepreneur, she's a country girl, drives her big old truck,
Oh, I love
but
it.
the sweetest, kindest, most considerate, can laugh at adversity, because we've had laughter has been medicine for us, and
Mm,
then, even when she was little, I wouldn't complain that I was hurting a lot, but, we'd be in line at the grocery store, at Target, and I guess you can see it in my eyes when the pain's starting to, like, boil all the way up to my
yeah,
head, and
yeah.
I mean, there's been times when I've been standing in line at the store and just sat down in the floor while I was waiting in line, but my daughter would look at me and say, "Mom," and I wasn't complaining, but she just knew. She had such empathy. She's like, "Mom, you know what? Why don't you try standing on one leg like this?" Or,
Oh,
"Mom, why don't you sit right over there?" Or, "Mom, here, I got you a cart. You can lean on the cart."
That's
Um, and I asked my oldest daughter, I was like, "Why did you decide that you wanna be a doctor?"
sweet.
And she said, "Mom, because of you, seeing you go through all those surgeries." So, yeah, out of horrible situations or authentic catastrophes, there can be blessings and a lot of lessons along the way.
And it's that ripple effect that the way you handled things and your reaction to adversity, to have your daughters kinda lead the life they have, and when you said doctor, I'm like, "Alright, I have a good idea where that motivation came from," but that ripple effect now, your daughter's goal is to help people. And
Mhm.
both of them, I imagine, are in that vein, so the way you handled things and having your husband by your side and helping you through that, it's the butterfly effect, but in terms of kindness and empathy in helping people out, so I don't know, I think that's amazing. It's a crappy thing, obviously, to go through, and it seems like you've had your fair share of, and I'm an elementary school teacher, so I can't say the exact phrase I would like to just to describe that, but, um, being able to get through that, and now you've encouraged those around you to really look at life the right way, so,
Well,
um
do your kids listen to your show?
not really. They're my son's 16, my daughter's 14. They know of it, but they don't sit down and listen. I did make something on Kobe Bryant, so I think my son was a little more excited for that one, but, no, they don't really, not
Yeah.
yet. When they get older, I'm sure they'll give it a listen from time to time.
Yeah, I interviewed May Musk, and there was a time one of my daughters was like, just like she wanted to work for Elon. She was just fascinated with everything when Tesla came out, and I had May Musk, his mom, on the show. She had a new book out, and so, of course, my daughter was like, "Well, ask this question about Elon, and ask this question, and ask that," and so but it's funny because, my daughter's teacher, there's a couple of her teachers that listen to my podcast, and I'm like, "Ooh,
Oh.
I better watch what I say," because I keep it real, and yeah, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh,
No,
they do?"
I'm sure it's good. I'm sure it's good, but that is really cool though that they take such an interest in it, and, yeah, it's funny when you hear certain people listening to you, and you're like, "I had no idea you
I
listen to any of
know.
this." Yeah. I'll
I
get
don't
message.
know, and it's the same. I don't know if you feel this way, but, like, I release a podcast and I talk and I'm just going on and I'm thinking or I put something in my story on social media or even things in my book, and I'll meet someone at an event and they're like, "Oh, yeah, that time when you did this, and, oh, and your dog Nugget when you put that wagon on, and then that time you talked about sobriety," and I was like, "Oh gosh, they really know a lot."
Yeah. It's funny. I have a few people that listen regularly, and they mention something, and I'm like, "I have no recollection saying that whatsoever," but it sounds like something I would have said. So it's a fun experience for sure, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear that you are like, I have no recollection of that because I just had a podcast come out and my husband saw it. It was posted. I went to a studio in Minneapolis and he's like, "When did you do this?" And I was like, "Oh, what am I even saying?"
Yeah, no, it's a lot sometimes to remember everything you're saying here. I can't even remember what I have for breakfast some days, so it's yeah, it's definitely
Well, I
interesting.
I get real excited and passionate about questions asked and then yeah, and then I just start as you could tell, I couldn't stop talking.
No, I appreciate that. It's all, I think, important for people to hear and to see and to hear your story and kinda give them a little hope too, for everyone's gonna deal with stuff, and no life is perfect and easy, and honestly, I don't think we would turn into the people we become if it was just an easy road. I think it's the tough stuff that really shapes who we turn out to be, and I think sometimes you need it in order to kinda kick you in the pants sometimes and get you going the right way, and, obviously, you don't want all those things happening, but there's definitely, benefits to adversity at times too. Uh,
Mhm.
yeah. Well, anyway, I don't wanna take up too much of your time, Amberly. I really appreciate you hopping on with me. How can people get in touch with you? Do you wanna, like, plug books, your podcast? Like, let's lay it all out here so people can get as much of you as they can find.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on, and I I think, I'm not sure when this will come out, but I've shared that it's really important about connection and community, and that's why I have an annual event. I would love for you to come. There's gonna be mostly women, just to let you know,
I
but
Honestly,
I
me
there
too.
are
teach in
As
some.
elementary school. I'm used to
reflection
being
Oh,
around
is
mostly
okay,
women.
well, there you go. Well, and you know what? There are some brave token fellas that come, but I have a summit called Unstoppable Success Summit. It's in Irving, which is real close to DFW Airport near Dallas. And that's April 30th. I'm super excited. It's where we can connect, level up in our business, our relationships, gain confidence and clarity to really move the needle on your business and your
Yep.
life in every way. So that's coming up. You can find out information on that at amberlylago.com under events. And proceeds I'm donating to Call to Freedom, which is an organization that helps survivors, women who've been survivors of human trafficking. So
Wow.
each ticket, tickets start at $30, but those proceeds will go to a good cause. And so you can find out, more about the podcast, my books, programs, and see all the behind the scenes crazy shenanigans on Instagram at Amberly Lago Motivation.
Okay, I'll put all that stuff, and links to your book in the description so people will be able to find everything pretty easily. Um, thank you so much. This was definitely a conversation I'll remember for a long time. So, Amberly,
Oh,
thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for being such an awesome interviewer and for an incredible teacher who I am so right there with what you want your kids to learn. I think that's so important. They're lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you everybody for taking the time to listen. We will catch you in the next one. Thank you.